Sound Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by the Mississippi Blues Marathon, presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi, January 7th, 2017. People from all over the country and the world will participate in the Mississippi Blues Marathon. For more information, go to msbluesmarathon.com. We welcome in Lugs, Tom Luginbill, with ESPN on the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline. Lugs, how was Halloween for your little people, man?
It was awesome. It was even better for the big people. It's my favorite holiday of the year, man.
So did you get dressed up?
Oh, of course. Didn't you watch our game on Saturday, man? You should have seen us. We dressed up on Saturday. We dressed up all day yesterday, and was able to get off of studio television last night, spend it with my kids. And it's been the first time in 4 years I've been able to because of the days that Halloween has fallen onto. So it's a big day for our family. Man,
I'm glad you got to do that. That's awesome. We had a big time. Some Sam Adams Oktoberfest was flowing. We had the fire pit going. That. It was a fun night. Your kids are that perfect age where they eat it up, man. Well, literally and figurative when it comes to the candy. All right, Lugs, Tennessee, where there's smoke, there's fire, and this thing already looks shaky. And now you lose to a poor South Carolina team that's in total rebuild mode, and Jalen Hurd is leaving. And honestly, Coach Butch Jones is really combative with the media. What does Tom Luginbill make of all this at Rocky Top?
That all the negativity and all of the clutter that is surrounding the program right now really seems to be affecting this football team's ability to focus on the things that they can control and block out the things that they can't, not worry about those things. They seem to be completely almost steered by what is said about them, and then it leaks over into performance on game day to the point where they can't just be Tennessee, be their football team, dig deep, depend on one another. It just seems like too many external influences affect how this team performs. And, you made a reference to Butch Jones in relationship to, maybe him being combative with the media or having a combative personality in general. And so, you wonder sometimes is the team taking on the personality of the head coach in that regard and going on the defensive and, trying to batten down the hatches, but they haven't been able to galvanize as a group with all the stuff that's surrounding the program.
And you can find yourself in no man's land for a decade in a heartbeat, as you know, Luke. Texas is still in no man's land. USC is trying to find their way. Michigan finally got it right with Harbaugh. So even though you're a perennial powerhouse and you've been winning since the 30s, 40s, or 50s, and you have that built-in alumni base and the big stadium and NFL players and transcendent players, that doesn't mean that you can turn it around. And although I consider Tennessee a notch below the Floridas, Texas, USC, Ohio State, and Michigan's, it's still a great, proud program. And honestly, Luke, I don't think they're close to where they want to be. Your thoughts?
Well, I will say one thing as far as being where they want to be. Of course, they're not where they want to be. Are they vastly improved as a program and as a roster from where they were when Butch Jones took over? Absolutely, they are. I mean, they've gotten better players, they've gotten better production, they've improved their record each and every year, and they've continued to make adjustments and improvements going forward. But what they haven't been able to do to this point is, I think, meet an expectation level that has been placed upon them by their coaching staff, and then certainly one that has been out there amongst their fan base as to where they should be by now to this point. Not 2 years ago, not 3 years from now, but right now. And this is a roster athletically, and I truly believe this. This is a roster athletically that only Florida on the East right now competes with talent-wise. So they should be in double-digit win category. They should be going down to the wire to figure out who's going to go to Atlanta. And that's not where they're at right now. And so I think that's where the frustration comes from within their fan base, because as I referenced going into last year, I thought the expectations were a bit premature. Going into this year, I thought they were warranted and needed to be met. And for a while there, they were, and now they haven't been able to do it.
He is Tom Luginbill talking Tennessee Vols and where they are. Is it toxic? Are they imploding? Or will Coach Jones be able to, quote unquote, right the ship? You know, he's got a layup as far as their schedule from here on out, but that doesn't mean that they'll win games. Just look at last weekend. Tom Luginbill on the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline. Here's what I struggle with, Luke's. Dobbs has not improved like he should, and I see what Mullen's been able to do with QBs, Gary Patterson, Mike Gundy, among others around the country who get B and low B players a lot of times and make them much, much better. And so I'm not just to be candid, I'm not impressed with where Josh Dobbs is today and where I think he should be.
Well, I totally agree. I think some of that is a result of the fact that he may not be able to be better than what he is. What we're seeing from him may be the best you're going to get, where you're going to see flashes of really good stuff, and then you're going to see flashes of really poor stuff, and then everything else is going to lie somewhere in the middle where you feel like you're going to have to be so good around him to maybe overcome some deficiencies. A player of his experience level should not make some of the errors that you look at that you see from freshmen and sophomores. And the unfortunate side to that is that he may be a great kid, maybe well-liked by his teammates, but maybe what we're seeing from him production-wise is basically what he's capable of.
Good point there. Okay. Mike Gundy, Luke's, help me. I know it's his alma mater. I know he played QB there. It looks like he and the AD and T. Boone Pickens have never really been on the same page, yet all Mike does is win. And he's about a composite 30 recruiter, so he gets nice players and does a great job over there. You surprised that maybe a big boy hasn't really tried to come after him? And do you think that Mike Gundy could make that move to a Tennessee or an LSU or another program and win big, considering what he's done with the type players that he's recruited the last 12 or 13 years to Stillwater, Luke?
Well, I don't think there's any reason to believe that he couldn't. Listen, with a guy like that at the program he's at, given that it's his alma mater, given that there's a distinct and long-standing background, I think in order for a coach like that in that situation to choose to want to look elsewhere, it has to be a place that is so dramatically better than where he's currently at. Because if it's not, what are you making the move for?
Right.
So I think unless it's, like as you left, if a Tennessee were to come open, or let's just say a Jimbo Fisher were to take an LSU opportunity and Florida State comes open, those are jobs that make you think now. But if we're talking about, all right, is a guy like Mike Gundy, if UCLA were to come open, does he want to bolt to UCLA? I don't know. Is that better than where he's at right now? I don't know if it's enough to entice him. You got a cost of living increase financially from a staff and a resource standpoint. You've got T. Boone Pickens right there, so you've got it good. So there's a lot to think about for him. I just think the job would have to be dramatically better than the one he currently has. Mike
Gundy continues to get it done at OK State. He is Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst, ESPN, SEC Insider Hit on the Out of Bounds Show. Okay, we've got a few minutes here, so let's go Bama LSU. I don't see LSU, and maybe I'm wrong here, I don't see LSU being able to dink and dunk against Bama. First, what do Geis and Fournette have to do? And second, do you think they try to just throw it deep, Etling, to those good receivers and think, hey, if we get a pick or something, then it's still 35, 45 yards down the field? How does LSU march down the field on this Bama defense?
Well, the first thing to pay close attention to is that for the first time since Nick Saban has been taking on LSU, you're not going to see as predictable of an offensive game plan from LSU as Alabama's become accustomed to seeing the last couple of years, where you just knew that Alabama, regardless of if there was 8 or 9 in the box, they were going to line up and they were going to be in 2 tight end and 2 back, and they were going to try and run it at you. And to be honest with you, that played right into the hands of Alabama. The challenge now is that LSU has gotten much smarter with their personnel groupings, much smarter with their formations. They have spread you out by formation to not allow you to have to be able to just load the box. I think that opens things up for the running backs. It opens things up for Danny Etling, and it forces Alabama now to have to cover the entire width of the field instead of just playing the game in a phone booth and realizing that, okay, LSU, we're not going to let you run it on us, and if you're going to just play your hand, go ahead and try and make throws downfield. You see if you can make enough of them to beat us. I think they will be more diverse, and there will be more opportunities to run the football just purely by the formational lineups that LSU will present. And I think that's a good thing for LSU coming into this matchup.
Are Fournette and Geis, are they capable of getting to 150?
I think so. I do believe that offensive line is good enough, and the backs are certainly exceptional, that if you're not trying to pound your head against the wall and do something that you're not capable of doing because you're at a numbers disadvantage in the box, you're certainly going to have an opportunity to rip off some runs. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some big runs, see good balance, and they put Alabama in a position to where it's, as I mentioned before, certainly not as easy as it ever was before.
So are you expecting a close game, and are you expecting a low-scoring game, or the teams run it up and down the field?
I'm expecting a close game because I think athletically they're very well matched up. The game is on the road. As I mentioned, LSU's not going to make it as easy for Alabama to bend them as they have in the past. I'm not sitting here thinking it's going to be a 39-36. I think the teams are too athletically gifted and match up for that to happen. So I would put it maybe in the low 20s to upper 20s. And I'm not a predicting score type of guy. But I know these teams athletically, when LSU looks at Alabama, they see similar players. Vice versa, you see the same thing, which you know is going to give you opportunities to make plays because you're not at a distinct personnel disadvantage.
All right, so in the last 7 Bama-LSU games, Tom, there's been 95 players who were drafted. 51 from Bama, 44 from LSU. Out of all the guys who will dress out, as we wrap it up, out of all the guys who will dress out on the sideline for the two teams on Saturday, how many, if not all, have you evaluated?
All of them.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, every single one of them, yeah. We would have had everybody at least in the 2 or 3 deep. And well, no, I take that back. I don't think there's been a class at LSU or Alabama since we started where we didn't have every single player evaluated. So I know that for a fact.
95 players drafted in the last 7 Bama-LSU games. 51 from Bama, 44 from LSU, with over 20 going into the first round. Lugs, we appreciate it. That was great. Glad you and the fam had an awesome time with Halloween. What have you got? Clemson, Syracuse is what you told us yesterday?
Yep.
All right.
Yep, sure do.
Have a great game this weekend. We'll talk to you Monday, bud.
Will do. Thanks.
All right, man. So I think 7